everyone, I'm Meg. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm a classically trained pastry chef, a wife, and a mom of two. I've worked in famous bakeries, Italian truffle sales, and in the wine world. Like you, I'm super busy with my job, my husband, and my girls, so I like to make cooking as fun and easy as possible. Here, I'm going to teach you how to bake and cook without a fancy degree. We'll pair wine with meals, good coffee with cakes, and everything in between. So grab a cup of coffee, pour a glass of wine, or sip on your favorite beverage, and I'll meet you in the kitchen. Hey everyone, today we're making a New York style cheesecake with a twist. We're gonna add dulce de leche. I love making simple, easy recipes, but with a wow factor. Dulce de leche may seem daunting, but I have an easy trick that everyone is going to love. Baking pairs well with a good cup of coffee, and today I'm drinking a maple pecan Nespresso. So good. Let's get started. I used to think that dulce de leche was the hardest thing to make. Every time I ordered it in a restaurant, I was like, oh my God, they must spend hours making this. It's so easy. I mean, it does take some time, but it can be in the background while you're taking care of your kids and doing other things because it literally is a set it and forget it type deal. So you just get a can of sweetened condensed milk and you rip off the label. Make sure you rip off the label, okay? You don't want to boil the label. And then you literally just put this in a pot of boiling water for 2 to 3 hours. So 2 hours will get it kind of like a lighter color golden, and 3 hours will get it a little darker. The 3 hour mark will have a little bit more of a like toasty sugar notes, which is what I really like. So I let it go 3 hours. When you put it in the water will boil off. So just keep on checking and make sure you add some water to it. Other than that, it's that easy. So let's go put it in the water. Now that we've got that boiling, we're gonna go ahead and prepare our pan. So I've got a springform pan. I think this is a 9-inch, but whatever size you have is totally fine. Springform pan, and then I did triple layer it in tinfoil because we'll be baking this in a water bath. I find that baking cheesecake in a water bath helps it not to crack on top, and it kind of does like a slow bake, so it keeps really moist and gets that good texture that we're looking for. So after I triple lined it, I'm gonna go ahead and grease the pan. So I just have a whole stick of melted butter in a bowl. We'll be using most of this today. And I have my little fancy, I don't know, what is this? Little plastic brush, whatever, it's the best. So we're gonna go ahead and just paint the pan and get it nice and coated all over. Too much butter is not such a thing. It's not such a thing. What am I, British? This is not such a thing. Okay, make sure you get the bottom really good and then get the sides as well because you want to make sure you're able to separate this off the cheesecake and it doesn't pull at your cheesecake and ruin our gorgeous non-cracked top. Okay, once we have a good layer and it's nice and glistening in butter, we're done with this. You can set it aside. All right, now we're moving on to our graham cracker crust. I have a cup and a half of graham cracker. I buy it already pulverized like this. You can buy the full graham crackers and put it in a food processor, but this is so much quicker. My favorite thing to add to this, especially because we're doing dulce de leche, is a teaspoon of cinnamon. You can leave this out if you hate cinnamon, but I just love the way it matches with the dulce de leche. So 1 teaspoon going right in. Now we're gonna add some melted butter. So remember when I said I had that stick of melted butter sitting here? What I've noticed is some days you need more butter and some days you need less butter. I think it's a humidity thing, but I don't really know. I'm gonna measure it out for you today, see how much we need, but I'll tell you my trick of figuring out when it's perfect. So we'll go ahead and add a couple tablespoons right off the bat. I know it'll be at least 2. And then you start mixing it, and I know, I'm sorry, you're gonna get a little messy. It's best with your hand. So you start mixing it with your hand. And what you want is for it to become, let me start that. And what you want is for it to become, what's the word I'm looking for? So what you want is it for, and what you want is it for, and what you want is for it to be wet enough that when you crush it in your hand, it stays together. So 2 tablespoons was definitely not enough. So I'm gonna add 2 more tablespoons and I think we might be good. And that's 4 tablespoons, but we'll check it. It might seem like a lot of butter, but that's what you need. And it's starting to really come together. It's getting more like clumpy. I actually think we're going to use 1 more tablespoon, which will bring us to 5 tablespoons of butter. Okay, this should be perfect. Yes, it gets like wet sand, like that sand that my daughter plays with. That's so satisfying to squeeze. So it's still dry enough that it's moving, but when I really put pressure and hold it in my palm, it's holding together. So that's what we're looking for. That was 5 tablespoons of melted butter. And I use unsalted. I like the unsalted because it's not going to add any flavoring. So now that we've got the consistency perfect, we're going to add that to our springform pan, and you push it down into the pan so that it's nice and compacted. Okay, I know some people have certain ways to do this and say, start with the sides. I don't know. I think it's fine. Just start mashing it around in there and try to get it as even as you can. And then you can focus on really, really packing it down in there. I like to make sure there's just like a little lip on the side because I feel like it looks pretty when you cut a piece of cheesecake and the side goes up a little bit. But however you like to do it, just make sure you get it as pressed as firmly as possible. Get a nice firm press. All right, perfect. And it just looks like that. It's nice and firmly packed in and ready for the cheesecake filling. So we can set this aside and go ahead and make our filling. All right, now we're making the filling to our gorgeous New York style cheesecake. What makes it New York style? I'm not so sure. I think it's the sour cream and cream cheese combo. I'm pretty sure, and sorry, New Yorkers, don't come for me, okay? I lived there for a few years, and that's what my grandpa said, that Junior's was the first New York style, and it's cream cheese and sour cream, I think. Anyway, whatever, it's delicious. So you got 4 blocks of, use Philadelphia, use whatever cream cheese you like the best. And then I left this out for a few hours. You want it to be softened because that's going to come together with the sugar more easily. So this has been out for like 3 hours before I'm baking with it. So it's nice and soft. You go ahead and put that in your KitchenAid. And if you don't have a KitchenAid, you can use a hand mixer for this. Totally fine. And then I have 1.5 cups of white sugar that I'm going to put right in there. And I'm going to set it on medium speed and let that come together until it's nice and fluffy. All right, so I let that mix for a couple of minutes, probably literally 2 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and scrape down the bowl just to make sure that there's no cream cheese without sugar. Scraping down the bowl is the best way to make sure everything gets nice and mixed and evenly mixed. And it's just one of those technical things about baking that you gotta do. Then I'm gonna put that back on just for another minute to make sure anything that got scraped in there is nice and incorporated. So I did let that come up to high speed just to make sure it was nice and fluffy. This all happens very fast if your cream cheese is at room temperature. If it's colder, you're gonna let that go a little bit longer. And that's the main reason we do it. It just makes this process so much quicker. So now we're gonna go ahead and add 3/4 cup of whole milk. And then put that on low speed to let that come together so that the milk doesn't splash all over you. I've done that before. And as the milk starts to mix in, you can start to increase the speed. Probably medium is just fine here. And medium is speed level 4 to 6. I don't know. I never looked. Now we're going to go ahead and add the eggs. I had 4 eggs that I cracked earlier. So these are at room temperature as well. Again, just keeping consistent with room temperature makes it all come together really fast. So you want to add these one at a time. So I just let like 1 yolk drop in at a time with a little bit of white. I'm not super precise, but you know, about 1 egg at a time. Once those are all mixed in, we're going to go ahead and turn it off and scrape down the sides again. All right, once the sides are scraped down, you go ahead and put that back on just for 1 more minute. And then our last additions are going to be 1 cup of sour cream, which is 8 ounces. I use full fat sour cream. You could use the reduced fat, but why? Dessert. And then 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. This is the key to getting that consistency. It really holds it together and makes it like nice and thick. So it might seem like so little, but it makes a big difference. And then 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. And then we'll mix that up, but don't let it go too long on this one, no more than a minute. I will put it on high very quickly just to make sure it's all nice and mixed in, and then that's it. I don't want to over mix it. Scraping down the sides. After my last scrape down on the sides, I'm just going to put this on for like 10 seconds on high. And that is it. So now we are going to pour that gorgeous, creamy, silky cheesecake filling into our prepared crust. Definitely whisk attachment for this one, in case you're wondering between paddle and whisk. Whisk works better. And now look at this gorgeous, silky filling. Now I'm just gonna scrape the rest of what's left in there. We don't wanna waste any little bit of this. Perfect. And now this is ready to go into the pan with the boiling water, and I'll show you how I do that. So for the water bath, I have an 11 by 16 kind of deep pan that's gonna fit the cheesecake and plenty of boiling water for the water bath. Just place it right in the center. And then you wanna get the boiling water about halfway up the cheesecake. I have a kettle already boiled, so we'll use that first. It might take 2 kettles worth of water to fill it up, but let's see. 1 kettle was plenty. I just got a new kettle. Turns out it has a lot more water in there than I thought. So it's perfectly halfway up the sides, and we can go ahead and carefully put this into the oven in the middle rack so that the top doesn't get too brown. Oven's at 325, by the way. So our cheesecake is finally out of the oven. I left it in for 1 hour and 20 minutes on 325. The way I can tell it's done is it has a little slight jiggle to it. And also if you touch it, your fingers just kind of like bounce off the top. And that's how you know it's finished. So if your finger sinks in at all or makes a dent, it's not quite ready. So you can leave it in for a few more minutes. But it's looking beautiful. It didn't crack, which is perfect. And it's got a nice like golden brown color. So this is good to go as is if you want to just make a New York style cheesecake, but let's top it up with a little dulce de leche. So I did this for 3 hours in the boiling water. Just so you know, if you do it for 3 hours, it might come out a little like claggy, like it'll come out like with little clumps in it. Just give it a quick whisk and it'll come back together and get that like silky, really velvety texture. And it's got that gorgeous caramel color and it just smells so good. It's gonna be so delicious on this cheesecake. We're gonna go ahead and use this spatula for spreading. I use this for all my buttercream and cakes. It's kind of the perfect tool to spread. And then we just kind of evenly put the dulce de leche right on top. Gorgeous. Okay, so I kept it in the springform pan when I did the dulce de leche on top on purpose so that it can kind of keep it all on top. I think it just keeps it a little bit neater. How gorgeous does that look? And it's also so heavy because there's 4 packages of cream cheese. We're gonna put it on a plate. And then spring form is pretty self-explanatory, but you just pop it open and then gently take it right off the top. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my God, beautiful. Look at this beauty. And see how I got the crust up the sides a little bit? I just love the way that looks. So if this were more cooled and the crust was cold, this would be much easier to pop off the base. Since I didn't have time to cool it and you might not either, you can totally serve it with the base. No one's gonna see that. It's not a big deal. And it helps to make sure that that bottom is gonna stay intact. Just don't leave your base behind somewhere. All right, let's go grab another cup of coffee that's gonna pair so well with this, and we'll cut into it. All right, let's go ahead and cut. I'm so excited. My husband's been asking me for cheesecake like all week, so this was the logical choice. He is going to be really happy that I made this. I'm also really happy that I made this. This is one of my favorite desserts. Look at this gorgeous cheesecake. I have like my big spatula. It's like the big brother of the other one, and this one's the best for serving. You can really get under there. Oh my goodness. Look at that baby. That is stunning. I'm gonna pair this delicious slice of cheesecake with a maple pecan Nespresso pod, and I am so into my maple pecan right now, and it's gonna pair so well with dulce de leche. I'm so excited. I'm digging in. It's delicious. Everyone is going to be so impressed when you bring this to the next party. It looks like you worked so hard, and really, it was so easy. Enjoy. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.